Wait for it, and we're live. Hey, all you crazy sci-fi and fantasy fans. It's time for your daily dose of shenanigans over here at the Blasters and Blades podcast. Just a couple of nerdy veterans and one chaos coordinator geeking out over our science fiction passions and fantastical fantasies. A place where magic is king, the sky is the limit, and space is the place. We are the podcast that puts the fun in dysfunction. So without further ado, we will address the elephant in the room. I would like a collective moment of silence for Nick Garber's beard.
It's growing back. It's just going to take about a month or so.
Namaste. All right. Now that we've got that out of the way, send your condolences, thoughts and prayers. Yeah, all of that. And if you want to send him money to get, like beard trimming kit so he can fix this,
I have
Venmo or PayPal.
It was user error. I didn't make sure the guard was on properly, and it popped out.
Okay.
And it has
Send your donation to buymeaguard.com.
Yeah. And this is comically, but it has come up recently that some people think we are spoiling movies even when they're old, Garrett. And so we would like to remind you that, yes, sometimes there will be spoilers, but when the movie is old enough to drink, it doesn't count anymore.
41 years, JR. The movie we're talking about today is 41 years old.
Shut up.
It's not.
That's right.
All
Yes,
right,
it is.
so now
Came out in 84.
Came
So
out
now-
in July of 84, so it's 40 and a half.
Oh, goodness.
Oh, my
So now,
God.
of course,
I bet you
I
told all the
we need to start a GoFundMe for the Jana therapy fund because now I think she's going to need it after hearing how old this movie was.
Me too. This predates the first time I saw Striper live. Golly.
Let's hold it makes me. Because I watched
my
it,
batteries.
on original run.
All right, so let's get this on the road. All right, so Miss Jenna S. Brown or Jenna Ray, if you prefer, can you introduce yourself to our listeners and viewers at home?
I can indeed. I'm Janet S. Brown, but I write under the pen name Jenna Ray. I write urban fantasy, science fiction, fantasy, whatever else the mind weasels tell me to. And I'm excited to be here. It's going to be fun. We're talking about, things that are near and dear to my 1980s childhood.
Mm-hmm. Abso-frickin-lutely. Next, we have Mr. Matthew Jasso.
Jalapeno Hasso, same thing. Come on, man. It's the fourth time I've been here. Is it the fourth time?
I ain't heard you yet, so it's the first.
All right, perfect. Good call.
So now I'm going to have to call you Matt Jalapeno, and people are going to be like, who the hell are you talking about?
Now it just makes it racist, and it's weird, bro. Matthew Hasso, I'm a freelance comic book writer, thanks to Nick. And then I don't know why I pointed. I don't know where we are in the grid, so who knows what happens. Yeah. And then I am also the
like
co-host
Hollywood
of the
Squares,
podcast.
man. Nobody cares.
That's true. Co-host on a podcast called We Are the Batman.
And that will be linked in the show notes. This podcast is enjoyable if you like all things comic book goodness.
Yeah.
I checked out a few of your episodes since your last visit, and I still pronounce your name wrong, so take that. I've heard you say it even.
He told me straight up, he's like, how do you pronounce jalapeno? And I'm like, jalapeno? And he's like, that's how you say my name.
Jalapeno Hasso. The weirdest thing about our podcast, our podcast is we have lucked into a big expansion because we both were off the day the Superman trailer dropped. So our reaction was up within the hour. So our listenership and followership has like quadrupled since then. So that's
great.
It's been crazy. I mean, not like, oh my gosh, we're making it, but it was just like, oh wow, that's what happens when you do current stuff and you get things done quickly. So
nice timing, man.
Yeah, it was lucky. So now we're just like, but then we're like, all right, now we can do what we want. And our last episode got like 8 views because it was about old comics. So we're like, all right, no more comic talk. A comic book podcast. It's not going to talk about comics.
Had to reel it in. Had to revamp our content.
Yeah.
All right. Next, we have the lovely Miss Melissa McShane of Warhamster fame.
Every time.
You know what? You're going to confuse people, and they're going to start looking for War Hamster and find that little picture of the hamster in armor and be, actually probably not disappointed because that's pretty cute.
You know what? I will make this promise here and now. When I finish the the reboot series with Jana, and I am between series, you and I will co-write the War Hamster series.
All right, done.
It will be anthropomorphic paladin hamster. That's right. We'll go from there, and it'll be a trilogy. We've no major commitment, but we will do this.
That's right. I think we should.
You need to put your War Hamster. Put your War Hamster up against David Batterina's Space Capybara. That's what you need to do.
Ooh. Where's the Space Capybara? That's great.
I mean, I was thinking the Paladin could take on Cthulhu because that's in public domain now, but I mean, Space Capybara could work.
Okay. Hi, I'm Melissa McShane, and I actually write the War Master series, among many other fantasy novels. I write different genres, subgenres of fantasy, including contemporary fantasy and historical fantasy. And I am coming to you from a beautiful morning in Kerala, India. It is a little bit misty out there, and the sun is coming up, and it's going to be a gorgeous day, which is good because my laundry has to dry outside.
Always a good thing when the laundry dries. And you also have written some cool stuff where you took like magic and applied it to the Napoleonic War, and the history nerd in me is just like, it is on my list to listen to the audiobooks.
You need to. I've got those. Only the first three, sadly, are in audio form, but that is my Extraordinaries series about people. It's basically the X-Men fighting the Napoleonic Wars, but it's all women, and they're all, Regency era ladies, and so it's a little different. But I had a lot of fun doing the research and writing that. It was great.
I'm just thinking of all the tax expenses I could do as I re-armament myself for like the 1800s. Like, the cannon's totally a tax write-off, Mr. IRS man.
Absolutely. Yeah. You totally sell that.
I actually, this happened in the last year and a half. There was a guy that was his home was robbed in Vermont, and he actually defended his house with a blunderbuss from the 1750s edition. And it was such a missed opportunity because he did not scream tally ho as he fired. And so that was the only missed opportunity.
Did he use grape shot?
That's another important question, and I don't know the answer to that one.
Well, yeah.
But yeah, I mean, that's just a tax write-off because it's research, right?
Yeah, totally.
Okay. Wait, if you're in India and you're an American, does that mean you have to pay taxes twice?
Yes.
In India and in America?
Yes. Ooh. Our taxes are extremely complicated.
But
well, fortunately, my husband's, the company he works for is very committed to keeping us here, and so they do they pay for all the accounting, and they pay for all the different stuff that we have to do to be compliant. But it's extremely complicated, and we hear about how complicated it is all the time because the accountant is always telling us how hard they're working. So,
This is a new angle because I've always wanted a flat tax because it's easy and I'm a moron with numbers. We've got the angle for it. We're doing it because it's better for the environment. You have to print less paper.
That's right. It's true.
It's an environmental move is what we're doing because we're forward thinkers.
That's right. Yeah, I totally agree.
Great argument.
Last but certainly not least, we have the many voices of Michael LaVoice.
Oh, hello. Hi, Michael LaVoice, author of Galaxy's Most Wanted and the soon-to-be released Gladius Leagues, Book 1, Any Given Doomsday. That'll be coming out very soon, and we're looking forward to that. It's so awesome. Anyway, I just had a lot of fun writing it, and working with Chris Kennedy Publishing has just been kind of a dream. It's just been super. I write science fiction, obviously military science fiction, and I dabble in fantasy. I've got several short stories out there as well. So yeah, I've been around a minute.
Cool.
Okay.
Hope to be around a lot more minutes.
Absolutely. So I've also seen some of the merch you're prepping for the Gladius League, so you can
that looks really cool.
Nice.
I could not believe when I asked Chris, I said, hey, you see that Gladius League's logo on the chest armor, that guy on the cover? Yeah. Do you think you could talk the artist into getting us that? He goes, it'll cost us. I said, I'll pay it. I don't care.
Make it happen.
Next day, it's in my inbox. And I'm like, dude, what do I owe this guy? He goes, he just threw it in. I was like, so yeah, it was amazing. And maybe I'll get in trouble for saying that. Maybe I won't. I don't care. It's a miracle to me. And it's now on embroidered hats and hoodies and sweatshirts at my merch store.
Yeah, most of the time when you get merch, it's like screen printed nonsense that'll like you wash it once and it's basically dead.
Yeah.
I have fallen into a few of those where my black shirt that had like a logo on it is now just a plain black tee. So I really appreciate the quality of that merch. So that's
spring Spring.com does good stuff. When I saw that the hat was embroidered with actual thread, I was, this is going to be killer.
Mm-hmm.
I can already see Nick now making like the Apogee logo now on hats.
It'd be awesome.
Sounds like he might already.
He's got to go find it. He may have already beat
What's he got? What's he got?
What?
Oh, cool.
Mr. Jalapeno Hasso has said, "Why don't you have one?"
Yeah.
Because you're just a writer. No, I'm just kidding.
Hush.
Matthew, I'll let everybody know, especially the listeners at home, I spoil my talent. They will get a swag bag filled with cool stuff.
I do not get spoiled from Nick. I just got that. Remember that time I saved your life? Can I get some of this? And then he asked,
don't send me your German Shepherd sized at poop. Okay. I need that.
All
right. So Nick, for those that don't know, do you want to talk about what you're 3D printing at the moment before we do the religion questions?
Currently I have two things going on because I got a mini print farm going on here. So when people find out that you have a 3D printer, just like when you have a truck, they want to use the shit. So
it's true.
It's the origin of the bumper sticker. Yes, it's my truck. No, I won't help you move.
I will not, especially in my 40s. No, pizza and beer no longer will entice me to help you move. Hire people. Someone in their 20s with a good back and hadn't had a stroke. So in the big boy, in the P1S, I got a bust of Spider-Man in the black suit, but I was lazy and didn't want to load the white filament. So I already had red installed. So I switched out the white for the red, and it's going to look really
good. So it's a female Spidey? Never mind.
I didn't do pink. Jesus. And then
you said bust. I was just
no, not boobies, like a bust, like a statue. Anyway.
Oh my gosh!
I have to explain that. My lord.
There went our family-friendly rating for this episode, Nicholas.
I got a
time for the "It's LaVoice's fault" banner. Here we go.
Oh wait, hold on. I gotta look for that one because I have like 40 of them queued up, ready to go. And then on the mini one, Marissa's or Stabby's sister. She's like a adult Disney person or something like that. They go to Disney like 4 or 5 times a year. It's ridiculous.
I know people like that.
But anyway, they get different ears and they get different bags, and they're like, "Hey, can you make something where I can hang my ears and my bag?" And I'm like,
"Put them on your head."
You know, if you design that might actually sell because there are people that
I didn't have to. Somebody built me to it. I just found it online and it was free.
Okay.
And so.
There are people that have a thriving AutoCAD industry where they're literally designing weird stuff like this to print for people.
You don't need AutoCAD anymore. They've made the software so simplified that you can just go in there and make stuff.
Have you seen the movie Toy Soldiers where the toys come to life and they're like actual militant little creatures? I could see you incorporating 3D printing into that storyline, and then you've got like the little men building things in the warehouse behind the filament, and they come to life.
AI at that point.
Yeah, that could be interesting. Ooh. All right, somebody write that story for me, and I'll take your money. Or you can take my money. All right, so
Replicator 6, let's go.
There we go. All right, so now the religion question, so we can start talking about the movie that brought us here. Because if I go too far afield, people give me looks. Mostly Nicholas. I'm just saying. The religion question. So Babylon 5, V, or Lost in Space. Melissa.
Well. V, but only if it's the original, because I watched the heck out of that and I loved that mini series. It is dear to my heart to the point that I didn't watch the reboot because it would just not be the same.
You know, Nick, I think we should start adding some of these ones that we've actually done for the religion questions to actual panel discussions, because I've seen the reboot of V, and it was disappointing in that they left us hanging with no ending. Curse you, Fox Entertainment. Maybe we should start doing reviews more of these classics again. We haven't done one in a while.
I'm totally down for that, especially if we're going to do the original V, the miniseries, and then the long running one,
and the movie.
And the movie. There was a movie.
Oh yeah,
started as a movie. Yeah. It was a miniseries. Yeah.
So we're going to have to get together the same people. So when we do the retro reviews, we have the callbacks because we were on the same episodes together. That might have to be a thing we put together. And yes, I'm looking at you, Matt. I'm going to drag you out of your shell and make you come on more podcasts.
Yeah.
All right. Since we like to be gentlemen and ask the ladies first, Jana, Babylon 5, V, or Lost in Space?
It's a hard one, but I'm going to have to say V. But same kind of thing. It's the old one, not the new one. Because I remember watching the old one, and I was just old enough that it was on at like 9. And I had to negotiate with my parents over the ability to watch this after my younger siblings had been safely taken somewhere else. And then we had little younger siblings who showed up during the bird eating scenes. And it's like, the aliens are eating again. They lost their crap. And then there was new negotiations for how I could watch it without them watching it. So it has all sorts of really fun, fluffy memories with it. So that's probably my favorite out of it.
That is something that the kids in the post DVR era, where you could just record it and watch it later, never had to, like, strategically timed bathroom and food breaks, like making sure like you're rushing back for school on Friday so you can get the TGI Friday shows. And
I will say one thing though, in this modern streaming era, I'm kind of happy that the streaming services have become complete cheap jerks and are now running ads and real commercial breaks, because now my kids get that sensation of you have 45 seconds to get to the fridge and back.
Yeah, you better run for it. My kids are why can't we pause it? Because that's not how this works right now.
Well, no, you can. We just don't tell them that because we want them to relive our childhood.
No,
I want to see broken teeth while everyone rushes to the bathroom and someone's going to catch a knee to the face, trying to get back on the couch.
Some of the services you have to watch it.
Yeah, you can't pause for the commercials.
That big final episode of MASH, where the very first commercial break, the entire New York City water system took a hit and shut down because of all the toilets flushing at the same time.
Flushed at once.
Wait, is that real?
Yeah, that's a real.
That is awesome.
It shut down the water
Very
grid.
first commercial break, New York City almost lost its entire water supply.
That is freaking hilarious. The one thing that I don't like, because streaming was great because then you didn't have to pay all the ridiculous fees to get everything you wanted, and you didn't get commercials. And now we're back to commercials, and we basically recreated cable at twice the price.
Yep.
Yeah.
We really lost in that one, and in the long run.
Mm-hmm.
The cable companies did too, though. I mean, really, they could have gone a la carte like we wanted 20 years ago and been sitting pretty. But no, they had to be. No, it's our way or no way. Nah. Okay.
Yes. So now you can have 40 streaming services and Dish on top of it sometimes, because some of the live sports you want are not even carried on streaming. So you have to have the satellite to get your live sports and then everything else. And we just don't watch anything except live sports and OP Live. So that makes it easier.
So Matt, did I ask you? I don't want to skip anyone. Did I ask you the religion question for Babylon 5V or Lost in Space?
No,
we would like your answer, sir.
The guys have not.
I'm in what they're saying. V is it. I mean, you got Beastmaster fighting aliens. I'm in.
That is one hell of a blurb. I like it. All right, Michael.
I'm going to be contrarian, though. I have to go with Babylon 5 because Babylon 5 was so good as a series, and I love Bruce Boxleitner. When he came on the show, it was just like, this is my show.
All right, Nick.
No, I only watched a handful of Babylon 5, so I'm not going to come on that one. Did like Lost in Space when I was a child, and I'd catch it on Nickelodeon, Nick at Night or whatever. I thought it was cool. But V is near and dear to my heart because it caused so many arguments between my parents because I wanted to stay up till 9, and my mom was like really into the show, and it was like something we talked about and bonded over. And my dad's like, no, he needs to go to bed. She's like, you shut your mouth. He's going to watch these alien lizards. I'm like, okay.
Love it.
I kind of felt like a dick, but I got to watch the show. So I was like, sorry, Dad, you lost, bro. It happens. You know, not knowing that years later when I became a married man and a husband and a father, that eventually I would lose those same battles. So, you know, turnabout's fair play.
So I feel every time Gordon Ramsay comes on.
You know, I was actually shocked because I've watched some of his, because you got some of the best memes out of his insults to people. But then the kids came on and they're teaching kids to cook, and I watch him be nice, and you understand
the most gentle little lamb.
Right. You understand that line about Bill Cosby talks about, his kids loving his mom and how nice she is. And he's like, that's not my mom. That's an old woman.
These are old people trying to get into heaven now.
That is how I felt watching Gordon Ramsay be nice to those people after you've seen some of the most horrendously awesome insults that he throws out. And with the kids, he was like all cuddles and cuddles. And I'm like, this is not the Gordon Ramsay we know and love.
Or love to hate.
But he was also nice, mostly because he's probably a little bit afraid. He did one where he was teaching the cooks in the British Army how to cook healthy, because I guess the Army was having issues with obesity in the British ranks, and part of it was because their access to healthy food was just not where it's at. Yeah. So he did an obstacle course with them, and then he taught them how to cook healthy affordably, which I thought was kind of cool. And he was not mean to any of them either, but they were armed. So that could be part of it. Mm-hmm. All right, so for me, it was definitely Lost in Space. I watched that on Nickelodeon and Nick at Night. I was old enough that I had a crush on the daughters because we were about the same. Well, I was the same age as the characters because they were old enough to be my mom in real life. Talk about awkward as a young man, realizing that. I remember telling my dad, "This girl's cute," and she's old enough to be your mother. Like, shut up, you ruined it.
Go away. Yeah.
Go over, right? Take my ball and go home now. Except I couldn't because he owned the house. All right. And because we're polytheistic, the land of the lost, Enemy Mine, or Flash Gordon. Melissa.
Okay, so I was actually talking to my husband about Enemy Mine after we watched The Last Starfighter. And so it's that, but it's because the novelization is so much better than the movie, surprisingly. The movie's based on a short story by Barry Longyear. And then they did the movie and they had him write the novelization. And so he went into detail on his property that he couldn't have, or that somebody else couldn't have. So that's why I mean, Enemy Mine is a great movie anyway, but the book is even better. So, and it's surprisingly, because it's a novelization, it wasn't like the book came first. The short story did. Anyway, that's my long explanation of why I like Enemy Mine.
It's a good movie even without that, but now I want to go and read the book.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Most of the time I don't bother with the books that come after because they're generally not as good. That's
right. Yeah, this is an exception.
I now I have a list of added to the books that I will one day get around to reading. So I literally can't die till I'm like 300 because I still got books.
Pretty much, yeah.
All right, Jana.
So this is another one. I like Flash Gordon for the sheer cheesiness factor. And this is, again, going back to the old original thing. The scene chewing was just so brilliant in a Saturday morning, watch it and just die laughing way. So that's a hard one because Enemy Mine it struck me really, really hard the first time that I saw it, and ever since then, about the way that they created friendships and what that meant, and the extremes that you would go to for a child that wasn't even yours. And as a stepmom now, I totally get that, because I've got 2 boys who are not biologically mine, but I will stand in front of a car for them because they're my kids. And so there's that different connection there. So I love them both, but for totally different reasons, because one is cheesy and campy and just makes me laugh, but the other one touches a lot of who I am. So it's a toss-up. It becomes a mood thing.
Mm-hmm.
That's valid. All right. What about you, Matthew Hasso Jalapeno?
Enemy Mine. As far as quality of film, it's way beyond any of the other ones. I mean, Flash Gordon, like you said, it is what it is. The Queen soundtrack's fantastic, but Enemy Mine.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Michael?
This is a hard one for me because I'm a massive, massive Queen fan. I'm also a massive Brian Blessed fan. And Brian is the leader of the Hawkmen. Mm-hmm. And so you got to realize, here's Brian May, astrophysicist and guitarist extraordinaire, and Freddie Mercury, fresh off of writing the songs for fresh off of this project, right, where you have Brian Bless yelling, "Who wants to live forever?" And the next thing they do is the soundtrack for Highlander. Mm-hmm. Featuring a song called "Who Wants to Live Forever." There's some real nice symmetry there.
Yeah.
That being said, Enemy Mine, is to me, the quintessential humans versus aliens, where we overcome all of the stuff that we're fighting over and get on the side of life. And that message way overpowers anything Flash Gordon could do.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So Enemy Mine.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Nick?
Flash Gordon.
I knew you were going to say that one.
You're such a yikes, I swear.
No, don't get me wrong. I mean, I love Land of the Lost. Enemy Mine was great for all the reasons that everybody's expressed. I probably would have just killed Louis Gossett Jr. in his sleep.
I never saw Land of the Lost.
You didn't see the dinosaurs? Oh, man.
Oh,
They
it's
didn't
such
carry
a
it
it's
on
such
my
a
local
wacky
station.
show. It is so cheesily made, but it hits. It's a good one.
Did you watch the
I've seen
original or the
memes.
reboot?
Wizard,
No, the OG, the Land of the Lost reboot, the movie. I think that was. Is that Will Ferrell?
Yes.
Yeah. That
And it
that
was
was entertaining.
Lord, no.
It was entertaining.
Why do they have to
but-
desecrate every decent TV show and turn it into a buddy comedy?
Money,
Starsky
money,
and
money!
Hutch.
Yeah,
No.
Being like a quasi father figure to a bunch of kids as they. Yeah, it was all right.
So I will admit, for me, Flash Gordon is the only one we listed that I haven't actually seen. So I did add it to the list of retro reviews for the season. I loved Enemy Mines. It is a good movie. It is one of those properties that gave you enough depth that you could revisit that plot forever and never run out of ideas and stories to tell. Yeah. I mean, just the story of them, at the end where they free the prisoners, slaves from the mining complex. Like that's a
spoilers, man.
Oh yeah, spoilers. I mean, bro. You gave us the intro in the beginning.
Bro. It's a little late for that. Yeah.
Uh-huh. We're gonna have to call it the Garrett warning. We're gonna call that the spoilers is the Garrett warning.
I love that. Turn your volume off, Garrett. Do it now.
Yeah. But I think there's
banner.
Yeah, that is one of those ones you could write 12-book arcs on that, right? But for me, the Land of the Lost, it is where I found my love of dinosaurs as a kid. I watched it. It was right up there with the little dino cartoon, Land of the Lost, and Jurassic Park, and all the awesome goodness that the 80s and the 90s gave us. And I'm aware that Land of the Lost predates the 80s, but that was when I was watching it, so that was when it was made. Nothing existed before me.
Fair.
I was busy watching live action ISIS and Shazam and the Superman, Batman, Tarzan.
I watched the Shazam reboot that they did, the movie. That was actually pretty good. I liked it.
I enjoyed that. I enjoyed that a great deal. There was a live action TV show in the 70s, though, and it was pretty cool.
Yeah, when it was called Captain Marvel.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. And now, because we are here to talk about The Last Starfighter, we do have to ask some aliens and spaceships questions because, as you do. But what is your favorite fictional spaceship, Melissa?
Oh, well, Serenity, because it's Serenity. And I like the feel of that ship as something that you could live in. And, much as I am really fond of X-Wings, because I had to fight my brothers to play with their X-Wing because my parents were real traditionalist and didn't think girls should be interested in Star Wars. Their sons should be. And so I had to, do that. So there's that. But Serenity is just, you could live there and it can do the crazy Ivan. And it's just, I just am really attached to it. So that one.
Okay, so you said Crazy Ivan, and in my mind, I'm already going to the pop-up targets on the rifle ranges that were all the Russians, because that's when I served. All the pop-up firing range targets were, shooting at the USSR.
Give that Crazy Ivan some freedom.
Yeah, that's Friday on the right, because Ivan was going to get you.
My head went to Hunt for Red October.
Also excellent.
Yeah, he's doing a Crazy Ivan in the Hunt.
Yeah, but having the Scottish guy do the Russian accent and the Russian guy doing the not Russian accent was just
wasn't that great?
That was just the worst ever. They should have inverted the assignments of characters.
I mean, it's no worse than Highlander. You got the Frenchman playing the Scotsman, the Scotsman playing an Egyptian,
who's also known as the Spaniard.
Right. And then the American guy playing the Russian.
But the or the Egyptian, it's buyable if he's not one of the ethnically Egyptian, but he's one of the boat people that came and conquered in the Bronze Age. It could work. Because we don't know anything about them, so we can make up whatever we want.
That's true.
And it's Sean Connery. So
at
12 years old, he can create Indiana Jones. He could be Egyptian, Scottish, Spaniard.
Yep.
Absolutely. All right, Jenna, favorite spaceship?
I like the Raptors from Battlestar Galactica. I know that the dogfights they have are completely and utterly, the physics on them suck because that's not how it works in outer space. But they are cool ships.
Mm-hmm.
The Mark
It's cool to look at. Those battles are cool to look at.
They're fun to watch, and I love the opening pilot for the latest Battlestar Galactica, where it really paid that homage to the originals and went, as I recall, I have a whole bunch of things, and they go down and they're ripping down all of the velvet ropes and everything, and I'm like, yep, those are the ships I want. It's true.
No, I like the concept. Battlestar Galactica is the first one I know that did it, and The Last Hunter that Terry Mixon and Jay and Chaney wrote. Concept of the mothballed museum ship that you got to throw into war. I liked that concept.
Yeah, I like that.
At some point in time, that is on my list to find a way to write one of those.
I got a feature very much like that in Gladius Leagues.
Nice. Cool. What about you, Matt?
It's the Falcon, dude. Nothing beats the Falcon. The Millennium Falcon. There's just as much as I'd love to like all the ships we've taught. Yes, but yeah, it's the Falcon. But Melissa, if you like the Serenity, there is a movie. So far nobody I've ever known has known about it. So if you guys know about it, awesome. It's called Star Chasers: The Legend of Orin. It was a 3D cartoon, and the ship in that is like. Somebody from Firefly forgot they watched that movie and created a Serenity.
Nice.
Almost
so cool.
very much the same thing. So if you get a chance, it's out there.
Oh yeah,
it's all
totally.
the 80s PG, not appropriate, but it's a fantastic film.
I love that idea. Mm-hmm.
So
that's great.
So even if you just look it up.
Oh
Dad
yeah,
Dabrini
totally.
was the pilot. He programs like this female robot, and she becomes a sex bot. It's really weird. But anyway. The Falcon. Nothing beats a Falcon. I can watch Empire Strikes Back every single day for the rest of my life and still jump in my seat when he takes it into the asteroid field.
Fine, I'll get you a bonus, man. Jesus, quit sucking out.
So there's if you like wacky takes on some of those themes, you guys should check out the Dust, DUST, all one word, YouTube channel. It's all indie, like short fiction films. Yeah, and they have some about that kind of stuff. Like my favorite, they have one about like drones that are sentient, and they're originally designed by the government to like hunt their enemies, but somehow the politicians get in charge of it, and it's basically anyone that didn't vote for them kind of thing. And it was like dystopian horror show that when I saw it, I'm like, this is so unrealistic. And this was before, obviously, the Ukrainian war. And COVID had the Yakuza and the Japanese police going back and forth with drones, and then you're seeing it in Ukraine, and I'm like, okay, so maybe these guys were onto something, because now I'm seeing that stuff, and I'm like, it doesn't seem quite so far-fetched anymore. All right, what about you, LaVoice? Your favorite spaceship?
Oh, you guys have said some really good ones, and this was not an easy question for me to think about. The more I thought about it, I was going to be really cheesy and go with one of the ships that I came up with for like my last series, but I wasn't going to do that. I was going to be that self-serving. But I do have to go with the OG wibbly wobbly, timey wimey TARDIS.
Oh yeah,
that counts.
I love Doctor Who, and I love the TARDIS, and the whole bigger on the inside, from that to the noise it makes, to the fact that it seems to have a mind of its own half the time. The whole concept, I just dig it.
Mm-hmm.
That's fair. Nick?
Slave One. Boba Fett ship.
What ship?
The ship that they refused to
call
by its proper name.
Boba Fett ship?
Slave One.
Prisoner Leia?
Slave One. I love that.
Technically, it's a fire spray.
No, that
Nick. It's a fire
that's
spray.
The class. It's a class. That's the class. The name of the vessel is Slave
That's
One.
right.
My second favorite.
No, you're
ship
absolutely right. I agree with you.
Also
100%.
belongs to a bounty hunter, but the Razor Crest from the Mandalorian.
Oh, love that ship. That was a great ship.
And I think I love
I
it
was really
because
mad
I'm
when
a
they
huge
blew
fan of
that up,
Serenity.
man.
Yeah, and then it got an MD1 Starfighter. I'm like, what a downgrade.
Oh, it was so bad. It was such a step down. I was like,
so Nubian.
And all of you guys went super serious with like highfalutin, deep thinking sci-fi, but I've got to say, Eagle 5 from Spaceballs, it's an RV with freaking wings in space, man.
It's true.
And it has my favorite line when the wannabe Chewbacca, but it's a cat instead,
Arf.
and the tail is
Dog.
the girl at the
He's a
diner. He goes,
Dog. He's a mog. Part man,
Half man,
part dog.
half dog.
I'm my own best friend.
you know, like Mouch from Chicago Fire. Half man, half couch. It's like that.
Yep.
but he looks like a cat. I know he's supposed to be part dog, but he's got the cat vibe.
Ears do this.
But it's the nose, man.
And
the
he's got
nose.
eyebrows. Cats don't have eyebrows. Cats got a bunch of crap sticking out of their head. Thought it was going to be
Clearly, I need to rewatch this, and we need to retro review Spaceballs.
Nate, you can't over make up John Candy. Come on, man.
But he's in the diner, and the tail does his thing, and he's like, this thing's got a mind of its own. I laughed so freaking hard at the line, and no matter how many times I rewatch it, I still laugh.
Having a German Shepherd, I can attest to that. Their tail has a mind of its own.
I have one of those too, and it's absolutely right.
You know how many times that dog has racked me in the nuts, like not on purpose? It's ridiculous.
Okay, thanks for that. And with that, we're going to pause for a moment while we shamelessly shill for the man, and then we're going to come back and talk shop.
Who are we shilling for?
Alien Days is a multi-author anthology with thrilling tales of aliens, invasions, artificial intelligence, friendship, deceit, and extinction. This combination of stories makes it a must-read for science fiction short story fans. This anthology features Nebula and Dragon Award nominees, Amazon bestsellers and award winners, alongside rising stars in the science fiction genre. Let the authors take you on adventures through dystopian worlds and far-flung planets that will stretch your imagination. Welcome to Alien Days.
Cool.
All right, and we were going to do a few other religion questions, but we ran out of time because we had so much fun. So instead, I will remind you that if you like coffee, and I know you do because you're listening to us, and we're addicts. I mean, we don't have a problem or anything. We can totally stop anytime we want to, but we just drink it because we like it. But
We don't want to.
we just don't want to. But if you like coffee, code podcast grunts, get you 10% off. Link is in the show notes. You get a little bit of a discount. We get a little bit of a kickback. It's a win-win. We grease the palms. We move along. And with that, that's right, Nick. You tell them. With that, we're going to talk about the movie that brought us here, the one that the episode is titled after, and you're probably wondering when are they going to get to it. So, obviously, we are here to talk about The Last Starfighter, which was directed by Nicholas Castle for a budget of $15 million in the 80s. I do not know what that is in today's time frame. Probably like $3 billion.
Matthew's on it. He's already Googling it.
Yeah.
Let's find out. I want to know that.
Yeah, okay, Michael, tell us what it is. $15 million, 1984 to now.
To me, I don't do math. What are you kidding? I'm barely right.
Sorry, I had still images on. It's $45.5 million.
Oh,
Holy crap.
Wow.
Yeah, that's diddly
They did a
squat
great
compared
job.
to your
Yeah.
average Netflix or Disney series.
Yep, it's true.
better than Thor:
Yeah.
Love and Thunder.
You shut your mouth. That was a good movie.
I'll
just
fight
like
on that.
Thor's
I'll
butt.
fight you so hard.
Oh dear.
All right. And it earned $28.7 million for a runtime of 101 minutes. It was released on July 13th, 1984. I will not tell you what I was doing that year because some people on this podcast will get very upset with me and I get the hate mail and it just gets ugly. I mean, I was 3.
Oh, okay. You did exist. All right.
So it was produced and it was distributed by Universal Pictures and in conjunction with, however you say it is, Lorimar Productions.
Lorimar.
Yeah, Lorimar. There we go for its overseas production. And so for its ad copy, It was high schooler Alex Rogan conquers the Starfighter video game, only to find out it was just a test and is transported to another planet. He has been recruited to join a team of the best Starfighters to defend the world from attack. My movie trailer voice is broken. I've been talking for too long today, but that's the ad. Oh, there you go. You gonna do this, Michael, or are you teasing us?
In a world without time. In a world where the music man becomes the alien man. One child.
But
come on, it was the same role. He was still selling things that he shouldn't have been selling.
Yeah.
True.
I mean, that is his whole goal there.
Right here in the trailer park.
And you can put his first thing to almost to the Harold beat of, you young man could do this kind of thing. And it's like, yep, that is totally Music Man.
Yep.
He also kind of reminded me of my recruiter when he's like, is this dangerous? Could I die? Oh, absolutely not. Totally safe.
No,
wait, do you work for Casino?
No.
You'll be way behind the enemy lines. It's fine.
Yeah.
I remember when I enlisted in 98, my recruiter told me that the U.S. Army Reserves and National Guard are only deployed after the Boy Scouts, but before the Women's Auxiliary. And in 98, CNN did run a special that world peace might finally be attainable. They were all wrong.
Yeah. Oops.
So, is everybody cool with that summary so we can move on to the fun stuff?
Yeah.
Greetings, Starfighter. You've been recruited by the Star League to defend the frontier against Zur and the Kodan Armada.
I want that video game. Somebody has programmed one on their own, and they've built. You can get the production for it, and you could build your own arcade. But it takes more know-how than I have.
Yeah. Now I got running in my head. We got trouble right here in River City. Yeah. With a capital P that rhymes with Spain. That stands for Kodan. I'm sorry.
I have no idea what that is, Michael. I got
Kodan Armada, dude. It's from the Music Man. Never mind. You're uncultured Philistine swine.
We'll talk about it.
Nick, can you show the trailer, please?
It's loaded up. Soon.
Okay. I gotta see.
Mute everybody. Let's go.
I love you, JR, but you got to watch some more stuff.
Come on, Alex, they're here!
Alex Rogan had a dream.
You really are leaving here, aren't you?
To be as far away from here as possible.
You get your chance. When it comes, you got to grab it with both hands.
It started with a game.
You're gonna bust the record.
But it wasn't just any game.
You have been recruited by the Star League to defend the frontier against Zur and the Kodan Armada.
And then one night...
Centauri's the name. We have to talk about a matter of utmost importance. Step into my office. I've seen him come and I've seen him go, but you're the best, my boy. Light years ahead of the competition.
Hey. Alex didn't find his dream.
Hey, look out! Oh, dear. Hey.
His dream found him.
Where are we? Welcome to Rylos, my boy.
A world on the brink of destruction.
You were recruited by the Star League to defend
the frontier against Zur and the Kodan Armada.
Of all the life forms, on all the planets, in all the galaxies.
Oh my God!
One has been chosen. Alex Rogan.
Alex?
I'm X.
Is the last Starfighter. For every Earthling who's ever imagined traveling beyond the stars.
There is a Starfighter left.
I love you, Alex Rogan.
Comes the unforgettable story of one who made it.
Wow!
The last Starfighter.
The structure motorized pergola system.
All righty. So what can I say? That was very 1980s. That we were talking about the DeLorean. I mean, the truck of the Centauri definitely looks like the 1980s version of what future would look like. And I'm pretty sure Elon Musk stole that for the Tesla.
Oh, yeah. That's okay.
Jana says it was the DeLorean crossed with a Cybertruck, and she's not wrong.
Mm-hmm.
So with that out of the way, I definitely want to get that video game. I would totally
unmute yourself, Jana.
Got it now.
There we go.
I would totally play that video game and throw that arcade in the man cave because that's just one of the classics you need. I'm disappointed that it is not real, that somebody hasn't done that for us yet.
There's a genuinely long trailer, man. That's really longer than most trailers are now.
It was
longer back then.
Yeah, and the costuming was very 1970s polyester vibes all over it, which I kind of added to the vibe of the 80s. Although that wasn't an aesthetic back then; it just was. Yeah, and I don't think that they were going for any nostalgia. Yeah,
and they're all wearing pilot outfits anyway, so it's all good.
Yeah,
yeah. So overall, would the trailer have sold it for you?
Yeah, probably.
It did.
Honestly, at that point in my life, I would have been there just for Robert Preston.
Yeah. Yes, me too.
Being a theater kid is one of the pantheon.
If I compare it to modern movie trailers, I don't think it's subpar at best. But based on its time, probably. I mean, I already heard the hype when I watched it because obviously I wasn't watching it at 3, so I was already I already had the buy-in. But seeing the spaceship, probably if it weren't for the crappy voiceover, I'd have done it.
Mm-hmm.
They really needed Don LaFontaine.
Yeah,
that voice was totally wrong. They needed Don LaFontaine for that one. He was still around then too. We could have done it.
Yeah, they probably couldn't afford him. So
probably not at that point. He was like
not with that budget. Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So Jana, would you have watched it off that trailer alone?
Well, I did. So I saw the trailer. We went to the movies. So
I would never assume that you go to the movie that you see everything. I mean, you didn't used to have to mortgage your house to see a movie in the theater.
Yeah.
So sometimes you just took a chance.
I don't remember seeing it in the theater.
I cheated because I didn't see it in the theater. Yeah, I saw it on HBO the first time I saw it.
I saw it on VHS. I mean, we rented it, and then my parents had taped it off the television or something. We had a copy of it, which is why I was able to watch it over and over again.
Mm-hmm. Right. I eventually bought it on VHS, and then I got it on DVD, and I watched it over and over.
Yeah, but I don't think I saw it in the theater.
Yeah,
I know.
Ours was at a drive-in. It was part of a double special kind of thing, and so the very first viewing is actually kind of fuzzy in my head because there was a whole lot of we were asleep on mattresses because back in the day that's how you did it at a drive-in theater, and then rewatched it when it came out on cable. Lots.
Yeah. I think my mom and my dad were big cinephiles when I was a kid. We moved watching movies, doing movies is a whole big thing, and there was the elementary school I was in, they had a program where you paid a flat $30 and you got a ticket for a movie a week. And the last Starfighter had just come out. It came out that summer, and we watched it in the theater. And I just remember it was a whole bunch of my buddies from my class, and we all went and checked it out, and it was awesome. I mean, again, at the time, you had never seen that. Star Wars was out and I think it's done by now, but no, you hadn't seen anybody with the CGI. The computer generated complete thing wasn't a thing.
Right.
At the
there
time,
was a debate for a while. Well, which came first, Tron or this?
Well, Tron is completely animated by hand.
Tron was 82.
Well,
this was 84.
There was some CGI. There was some CGI in Tron. Some. A lot of it was by hand.
This was a lot. This was all CGI.
Yeah, exactly. And that was my point. Is people kept saying that Tron was the first.
Tron
let's see. No, that doesn't really. I'm not sure that should count because Tron just had a little.
Well,
this is all of it.
If you watch a making of Tron, it's the light cycle may have been CGI, but the background
that was about it.
Or it was a lot of mixture. This was everything.
The recognizers and the light cycles were just about all there was that was CGI in that.
So
Yeah.
it was big about that.
Oh, and the tanks.
Yeah, and they did a good job going back and forth between the stuff that was CGI and then the actual set pieces. You didn't get, I mean, for its time, it was really well done. That the pseudo DeLorean pulls in, and now you're on an actual set with the aliens and everything else, and you didn't feel like you had done this jerky thing coming out of the CGI. It actually felt pretty good. Same thing when they take off. You know, they're driving down the road, and it's wait, out of road, and they hit the thing, and you can tell where the CGI starts, but only if you're really looking for it. It's really pretty smooth.
It's a lot easier to spot in the cutaways from the exterior shots of the Gunstar to the interior cockpit shots.
Yeah.
It's a lot easier to distinguish. But to your point, that's exactly
well,
right.
and some of that too. It's kind of, I've talked about this before and other stuff, is like, you know, we have the luxury now of big televisions and HD. Like when I was a kid, the television was 13 inches and it was gigantic. And it was under SD quality. So it was like there was so much of it that you didn't notice because the quality of the television may not have been there.
And you were the remote, right? Were you the remote too?
I had a piece of string. I had a piece of string to my upper bunk to the TV, and I could just pull the string and it would pull the power button.
Well, no, we had the vice grips. We had the vice grips on the channel changer.
Yep. Because eventually the channel changer always busted off, and you ended up with the vice grip.
The vice grips.
Voltron coming on.
Not only was I the remote, I was also the antenna sometimes.
Hold that there and just stay there until the news is over.
Lift that right leg up, Nick.
6 inches away from the screen with your cereal.
That reminds me of that meme where you've got the picture of the big boxy TV from the 80s, and it's like, we lived in such a peaceful time. Nobody ever stole our TVs.
Because it was 600 pounds.
So, like we've talked about a little bit about the world that this movie came out of, the moment in time that was the 80s. Good, bad, or indifferent. It was a unique segment of American history with a unique feel to the fiction that we engaged with. But so let's look more specifically insularly to The Last Starfighter. What did you think of the main character, Alex Rogan?
Well, my husband and I watched this again on our big TV, and speaking of the special effects, it actually holds up really well on the big screen with the high def. It was surprising, but he's not whiny. He could be whiny. He has his moments where he's like, man, I was going to go to Silver Lake instead of having to fix this thing in the trailer park. But, he's making an effort. He's trying to get out there. And so I think it's kind of a surprise to me when they have that moment where he's chasing the first of the Kodan fighters and he won't shoot. And Grigg is all saying, no, shoot. And he's like, I'm not going to do it. And there's no explanation for that. I mean, to me, it's like we're saying, oh, well, we want to show that he has qualms about taking life. But they didn't do anything to support that. And his character background doesn't do anything to support that because he's somebody who goes out and he does stuff. He's trying to get out of his little trailer park town. He's trying to get a loan so he can go to school. He is willing to do this. And when he's given the opportunity to be a starfighter, it's more like, this isn't me. This is not the dream that I had. I had this dream to go to college, and you're offering me something that I wouldn't want. And to me, that does not come across as unbelievable or whiny, even though if it were me, I'd be like, yeah, I'm going to be a starfighter. Sign me up. But for him, it's just, his character. It's just who he is. And for as much as I wish Lance Guest had shut his mouth frequently, because he's always got his mouth hanging open, and that was a little annoying. But overall, I like this character. I like where he's coming from, and I like that he finally, does decide, this is what I need to do. It's not what I had in mind for myself, but this is what I need to do to help everybody.
Well, so that moment actually comes later. It's not even the first mission. It's when he goes back home and he realizes these hunters are coming after him, and by extension, his family is in danger. And that's what motivates him to go back. Because remember that one biker mustache cop, that guy had a glorious mustache in his fake body.
Yes, he did.
But he comes to town, and then he starts trying to kill him. And Maggie gets in the way, because remember, she comes out and she sees some of that, and suddenly it's different. And now it's I'm protecting her.
It's not just her, it's the world, because they're telling him, Earth's not part of this thing, but they're going to come for you. And Greg even says, yeah, you could go home and live a long, peaceful life, until they show up on your doorstep. And so, he has reason to do the things he does. It doesn't bother me that he refuses that initial call to be a starfighter, because I feel I think that's reasonable for him.
I think if he had gone in too easily, it would have felt unbelievable, because question, like, wait a minute, this was just a video game. What are you talking about? Like, and you brought me up here and you didn't really explain anything. Like, I don't even know what I'm fighting for necessarily. Like, if he had been too easy, I would have had some more questions than the way they did it. And just to be clear, when the alien comes to kill him and he's trading fire with it, he grabs a stick. The other guys have the guns, but like Maggie wasn't in that scene, but he had just passed her, so he knew she was out and about. She wasn't like sleeping it off kind of thing.
That's right.
And so the impression they gave because of the scene right before it was he knew the stakes. Like, it was his family at risk. And that's for me what sold the conversion to steely-eyed fighter pilot.
Well, and I think something that's, for me personally, I mean, having seen it so young and then seeing it now, is when you're 10, this guy's probably, I mean, they never solidify how old he actually is. He's definitely out of high school.
Well, no, because he said he was in high school getting rejection letters, so he's a senior.
Is he? Okay, so at least he's 18. Or most he's 18, at least he's 16, 17. So,
I'd say 17 because he could drive. And he's a senior, so.
I mean, depends on how smart you were. Point is that you're not talking about somebody who's 25, who is a young adult making these young adult decisions. You're talking about a kid, now being however old we all are. We don't have to talk about it. The point is like, we look back and it's like, I have kids that are older than this guy probably is. And I can't imagine my daughter leaving. I mean, it's hard enough to send her to college, but imagining her leaving and going like, okay, I have to go to space and kill people or else the planet's going to die. Like, that's just seeing him grow into like a man making these decisions of like, no, yes, I wanted to be out of the trailer park because I hate living with my mom. Then goes to, oh, now I'm off my planet doing things that matter beyond I don't want to be at home. And I think that's an interesting journey here, because I think some of these 80s movies, you have like little punk kids that are just being rebellious, or you have a guy who's bad, who's becoming good. You've got somebody who ultimately throughout this film is always doing the right thing. And every time his decision to do the right thing, it just increases how much responsibility and how much more of a right thing. Is that how to say that? I don't know. And I think that's what I liked about him, is that ultimately this guy gives up his family, his life, his world to go save the universe. And at 17 or 18, at 19, I was just trying to get a girl to hang out with me.
They actually cover some of that, so they don't actually hit it on the nose, but he's the man of the house, right? That vibe is very much there. When he shows Greg, his alien navigator, the picture of his family, there's a dad in that picture.
Yeah, we don't know what happened there.
We don't know, but the presumption is he's dead, because divorce wasn't as common in the early 80s where they would have made this. At least not enough that they would have put it in a movie. So the presumption is dad died. Given the time that it was written, given the time that it was taking place, chances are, I mean, that would have been the tail end. And well, no, too old for Nam, but there was enough going on that you just presume dad's dead. And if that's the case, like, that kind of forces you to grow up sooner anyway. Yeah. So the fact that he was quasi-adult, like, oh man, I really want to go, like Melissa was talking about, to that lake with my girlfriend, but so-and-so is not going to get her soaps, and that's just the end of the world if I can't fix her TV.
Yeah, but I liked that it wasn't that he hated his family. He didn't want to get away from his mom because she thought she was a nag or that he hated his kid brother or whatever. It was a very positive thing. It was just he wanted something more than a trailer park. And so I like that it wasn't that, because we do see a lot of, well, it's coming from broken families, we're rebelling, we're whatever. And he just wanted more. And so when the more was handed to him and the more was not go to college and learn how to do a thing, it was, and you want the more is go to outer space and save everybody. I mean, he handled it very, very well. There would have been a lot more screaming involved in my case. And he's looking around at all those alien things, and he just has this bemused look of, the hell. Okay, I'll just kind of go along here. But he wanted to get back because he cared about his family. He cared about the people in the trailer park. He goes to break the high score, and you get every single person in the trailer park puts their stuff down. I mean, middle of the card games, and they all come running over so that they can watch them. Then there's jumping up and down and screaming and stuff. They were his extended family, and so that's why the Hunter thing mattered so much, because that's what would go first. Is they were going to go through his family, they were going to go through his mom, they were going to go through all the people in the trailer park, and that's when he makes that real decision that says, no, I'm not doing it because I need to be a hero to the universe. He was being a hero to those people who he had a personal stake with. And I really love that, because it makes the whole thing a lot more personal, because that's what he's going to fight.
That scene you're talking about where they're all cheering him, and like the granny is there, and like he's gonna get the high score, and they're talking about, and like she has no clue what she's cheering for. She's just cheering because it's him. And the question is asked, like, it's reminded me of everyone who's ever gone to a sports game that they didn't understand the rules for family, and you're cheering like, get a home run. We're like, this is soccer. They don't do home runs here. You know what I mean? Like, it had that vibe to it, and it made it like more wholesome in a weird way that I'm not used to in modern fiction.
Very fun.
So I really did appreciate that. The scene with the magazines under the bed was definitely a snapshot in time. Go to sleep or I'll tell mom. Like, I'm not gonna say what it is because I don't want to hit the censor bots, but that scene was just such a
go to bed before I tell mom about your magazines.
It's an 80s PG, which is a very different thing as compared to current PG, because there are things, especially young men were allowed to get away with in a lot of these movies, because Goonies had things that would now be very questionable in a different way. Explorers, there was a whole list of these movies that were these kids going off on adventures, usually mostly young men with the token girl in there that, for them to look at longingly.
Yeah.
Yes.
Well, and because PG-13 doesn't exist at this time yet.
Right. So it has range all the way right up to the edge of R. And so there's things that it's like, oh, we would never see this in a PG movie now. But for the 80s, it was just, nobody even batted an eyelash.
And then
how great was that scene with Beta trying to fit in with all the kids, and he's eavesdropping on the conversation with a couple a few feet away, and trying to use that guy's lines to look, all
the other women meant nothing to me.
Should I talk dirty to you now? What?
That was great. And then the moment where he's like, all right, I give up. I'm not Alex. And she's the one to be going, wait a minute, and everything starts falling into place for her, but it's just a little too crazy. And he did Lance Guest did a pretty good job playing, both parts, I think. He pulls off android thing.
You see it best when they're both in the room, when actual Alex Rogan comes back and he's talking to beta Alex Rogan because he realizes what's going on in the room, and they're on a bunk bed with his little brother on top. And he's talking, and the brother looks over like, what are you doing? And he goes, go to sleep. And he goes back to sleep, and then he wakes up after the door slams, and the beta's like, go to sleep. And it's the exact same scene, different outfits, different angles. It was just too perfect.
Interesting fun fact on the beta. They first put the movie together, and then they showed it to the test audiences, and the test audiences loved the beta so much that they came back post-production and they filmed more beta scenes. And when you look at it, you'll notice that the beta has very different hair. Well, it's because the actor had cut his hair clear back for another role, and he was sick. And so he came back to do all of these, and they put this terrible wig on him. And so it's part of why he looks the way he does, is he's paler because he's sick, and he's got this wig on that he's trying to not flop off his head while he's trying to do this role, because the audience has just loved the whole idea so much that they went, no, we have to put more of these scenes in, and they extended the running time, because before it was slightly under an hour and a half. They extended the running time with all of the Beta trying to fit in scenes, and that was a callback afterwards, which I thought was tremendously fun, that they'd gone back and refilmed that and had the random wig. And
they did a making of movie that we saw. Well, we didn't see the movie, but we were looking up, different things, and I'm thinking, I would not mind watching that. I would be interested to see what went into this. Especially with the CGI and with the different acting choices they made, and more Robert Preston for my money.
And can we talk about the scene where he's a blob, basically, as he's taking the shape, and like, the brother was like, he's been moaning all night. And the you can see on the actress that played Catherine Stewart, I think was her name.
Catherine Stewart.
Yeah, the lady that played Maggie. She's watching him in bed, and he's just moaning, and it definitely sounds inappropriate under the blanket. And of course, like, you can see her arching the eyebrows, so she knew exactly like what that sounded like. I don't think that's what they were going for, but just that facial expression was just too perfect. And that was one of the best scenes, was when you see him as the blob, and then that interaction with Maggie.
Yeah.
So, one of the things this movie did really well, I thought, was some of the foreshadowing. So, like, when he is on the Star Lake, and this is where he does the other girls meant nothing to me, and he finally does the big reveal. I was laughing hysterically, by the way, at that. And he says, "Oh, I recognize this is the alien hunter. If we don't take him out before he communicates, there's going to be a problem with Alex in space." So he goes and he jumps in this guy's truck, and you hear the guy, "You better not leave a scratch." And when I watched it, I'm like, that truck's getting destroyed.
That truck's getting wrecked. Yep.
Yeah, that's it.
And so they did that, like the perfect it wasn't so much that, like, if you didn't study plot stuff, you would necessarily get it every time. But whenever they foreshadowed it just a little bit, I'm like, oh, I see what they're doing here, and it's glorious. Because I watched this last night to refresh myself, and now I'm looking at it with eyes of who's written a few novels myself. And I'm like, I see exactly what they're going for.
Yeah.
It made it even better.
Yeah.
So what did you guys think of the supporting cast? So, like, the Maggie, the little brother, Greg, the alien. Drawing a blank on who that actor was, but
he was the villain of most 80s movies.
Really?
The head of OCP in RoboCop.
Yeah, he was that.
I can't remember his name.
Dan O'Hurley.
Dennis O'Halloran.
O'Hurley.
I'm sorry.
To see him in that role was interesting, especially Griggs. Yeah. He's such like an upbeat, positive character.
Yeah.
Oh, wait a minute. So, when I see the character in the mask, here, let me pull up the video or the image while we talk. When you look at him in that mask, you assume they got a black actor just because it makes sense, right? With the way they did the costuming, and then you look at it, oh, this guy's pasty.
He's a frail, pasty white dude.
Yeah, he is.
Again,
true.
Think of RoboCop. I'm very disappointed, Dick. Like, this is a glitch. What?
All right, I'm pulling that image up so you can see what I'm talking about, dear listener.
What's your name?
So this is Greg, and of course, Melissa, his mouth is open.
Yeah, see? He's constantly walking around with his mouth open. He needed to shut his mouth occasionally.
Every role he was in the 80s. His mouth.
I believe it. I think it was part of his shtick. I think every time he did it, he was like looking intense and serious, and I think that was part of how he conveyed that. But you watch it long enough, and he's just got his mouth open all the time.
Maybe he's related to Kristen Stewart.
So this is the movie poster, which I absolutely adore.
That's a great movie poster.
And this is the alternative poster that they put out years later.
That's the cover of the VHS cassette we had.
Yeah.
I think
it was also the cover of the Alan Dean Foster novelization.
It is the cover of the novelization.
This was the cover from the computer game that they made. I've never actually seen that out in the wild, so I don't know if it was ever made it past production. But
I don't even know what system it was for.
I don't know either, but this was the cover for it. This was the alternative cover that was done for one of the anniversaries. I just can't remember which one. Which I actually like this one. It's brighter. It's bright enough. This was like from the 90s. And this is the ship.
That's a DeviantArt redo.
It is, but I mean, it's the highest quality I could find. This is the one.
The Good Star.
The movie. I'll leave that up for a little bit. The DeviantArt one.
Speaking of stuff, sorry, go ahead, JR.
No, I was just saying, I like the way they did the fake language. And you see that writing on here. You see that when he gets to the space station, and it's just gibberish. And they just sold the gibberish like it was real until they gave him the translator.
Yeah.
And then they didn't change the lettering. So the translator just gave him the sound, and they didn't go back and I mean, they were smart. They didn't make it into English lettering, because why would they? Why would he have gotten that?
Yeah.
So all the screens still have the alien lettering on them. And I was going to say, speaking of bringing ships out of mothballs, his ship is kind of the reverse, because it's like the prototype. And that's why they had access to it, because it was not where all the other ones were that were destroyed. So it's kind of like the reverse of that.
Yeah.
Well, it plays on the trope there at the end where, you have your Omega-13, you have your ultimate thing that nobody's ever tried to do. If you do this, it's going to explode. Of course, that's the foreshadowing again. Of course, he's going to have to use it. And then you get callbacks from other shows that have that same thing of, like, say, it's the Omega-13 from Galaxy Quest. It's all those other things where it's the highly dangerous thing that, of course, they're going to have to do before the end, and we all knew it. And so then you cheer when they do it because you knew it was coming.
And they all belong to Chekhov.
Yep.
Yeah, this is the cockpit view. This looks almost like the one they filmed in, because you're not seeing outside. It's like from inside the cockpit vibe. But it was simple lines. It was very clean lines. They didn't overcomplicate it. And they get away with it by showing the HUD screen is you got to look at it to see it. Whereas, the other option is they go a bunch of extra lights and flips and switches that do nothing. I'm convinced actually NASA does this too, by the way. Some of those switches are just there so they can charge us. They don't actually do anything.
But I was looking about that the other day, because I was in the middle of a debate with some other authors about touchscreens in space and how stupid of an idea that is. Because NASA in some of the early days and some of the Air Force planes, they started trying to go to uniform knobs for stuff. And pilots started crashing stuff because the knob that they were used to feeling to open the flaps or whatever was suddenly felt just like the knob to kill the throttle or something else or some other function on the aircraft. And I was like, that's a really important idea, that you need physical knobs, buttons, and dials in your ship that feel different from each other, because you're not going to be looking at the control panel the whole time. And that's what annoyed me about Star Trek Next Generation, is they're all like, okay, it's a little different. I get that it's a bigger ship, but at the same time, touchscreens, you lose power. There go all your screens and all your controls are gone.
Yeah, you're out of.
And another angle.
Get out and push.
Another angle that no one ever addresses, especially when you're talking about fighter planes and spaceships and whatnot, anybody who's ever tried to lean forward just a little bit to change the radio station on a bumpy road, now imagine that's G-forces instead. You're asking for trouble, unless you do the fictional compensators or whatever, the same way we get around gravity and the laws of physics. But unless you build that into the universe, that's just extra on the pilot, which I think is something to think about. But I think at some level it was just about filming it clean. And so, real quick, this is obviously a scene from the last Starfighter game that he played, and this is him getting ready to play it. This was cut right before the first time you see him playing the game, where he gets the 900 and he has to leave because the high score was 1,000, and he turns it over to his brother, and then his brother crashes.
Did you see that the letters on the side are similar in shape to the alien language letters?
I did.
Like in that same style. So I think that's an interesting detail, because Centauri is the one who made it. So
I really like the logo for the Starfighter, the sword with the wings. It's very clean.
That's very
good. That is very Jedi order.
There's a veiled reference. There's a veiled reference to Arthurian legend. Does anybody remember that?
No, go on, tell me.
Greg is talking to Centauri after he brings Alex into the station. He's like, "Up to your old Excalibur tricks, Centauri,"
That's right.
and it makes you think, "Wait,
Yeah,
is
how
he
old is
involved with
Centauri?
that?"
Wait, so you're saying that Centauri was Merlin?
Well,
I'm not saying he was. But
You could make that argument.
The implication.
You could make that argument.
So is anybody else, this is a little bit of a spoiler, but did anyone else get a little bit of a kick out of the guy that was the money counter that was giving him grief and looking for any reason to take that money back was the one that ended up being the bad guy in the end?
Yeah.
I'm like, I knew I didn't like that guy.
Yeah.
Stupid banker.
Well, and speaking of the bad guys, though, I don't think my young self got just how dismissive is it the Krill, the ones that are the Kodan. Yeah. Anyway, just how dismissive they are of Zur. How he's chewing the scenery. He's talking about how great he is and how wonderful, and they're just giving each other looks like as soon as we can knife this guy in the back, we're doing it.
Oh yeah.
And
I
know
at the end, they're like, "Congratulations, you killed us all." Like just the amount of disdain and hatred for the guy that was leading
and I
them.
loved that.
Killed us
I
all.
loved that.
And you got the impression when you watched that scene, like they were going to knife him at the end anyway. They were never going to keep that bargain with him.
That's
right,
he totally. He was a
saw
fool.
it except him.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and the bad guys he had the giant scepter thing that he used for, anytime he was going to do something really evil, then he'd hit the thing and it'd go and all the knives and stuff would come out. And then the Krill general always had that little eye thing and it would always flap in front of him right before he said something particularly cutting or did his line about, what do we do now? And it goes, flick, and he goes, we die. And he was just like, ah! But yeah, it was dramatic intent.
That was such classic 90s or 80s cheese kind of vibe. Like, no, we die. Because everyone thought in the moment of stress, everyone's got the quippy one-liners. Now we've got, 20 years of war under our belt and that was filmed more in ways that the Vietnam wasn't. And we're like, yeah, nobody thinks of that stuff in the moment.
Yeah.
No, you think
but
about
it was after, but it was just so perfect. I was like, I know exactly what they were going for.
And his real combat is, what do we do now? We change our shorts. That's what it is.
Quickly.
So what did you think of the bad guys? I like how they were shown, like they were very alien and with all the weird lines that they did.
I liked it. Let's take a minute to give some kudos and respect to the fact that they used a meteor gun. It wasn't a big highfalutin energy weapon. It's like, hey man, kinetic impact is a good thing. Let's use that. I mean,
it sucks to be on the receiving end.
So great. Absolutely. I was like, a meteor gun. That's
pretty
cool.
You know what that reminds me of? Did you guys ever watch Space Battleship Yamato, where it was called Star Blazers here?
Yes, Star Blazers.
They use They use that. They bombard the Earth with meteors from Neptune or from I think it's Neptune, and that's how they destroy the Earth.
Okay.
So it's like
from God.
Do what?
Rods from God approach.
Yeah, so it's just interesting, like the little things of again, like did they watch this? Did they watch that? So I thought that was cool. But yeah, you throw asteroids at their base.
Well,
I'm not shooting that.
Speaking of shooting, is the one of the things they show to foreshadow it is they cross over and the Krill want to wait. The Krill general, he wants to wait for that scout party to report in, but we of course know they're dead because we watched spoilers. We watched Alex Rogan like ice them right in that little firefight that they did, and he's like, we should wait for them to report back. And the human or not the human, the alien without. The traitor, the young man with the scepter. I'm drawing a blank on what kind of alien he was. Zur. He's like, no, it means they're dead. Let's just go.
Yeah. Because the message is the last Starfighter is, and he fills it in and goes, is dead. Obviously.
Well, then when they go in without waiting for their scouts to come back, and you're like, we know this is going to end badly. Aside from the good guys always win in the 80s, but we know it's going to end badly because they didn't wait for the reports. And the general's like, no, let's not do this. And the boy's like, hey, your emperor said I rock, so do what I say. I thought that scene that set up to the failure was so perfect because it wasn't that they were necessarily better because he was a rookie pilot. Alex was. It's just the other side effed up so badly they didn't make it that difficult for him.
Well, and you got to think too, like the prince escapes, And those guys had an emperor. This is just a small part of whatever these villains are. So we still have plenty of movies and adventures, though they never happened, to go, which what I like too is like he stopped this one wave of this invasion. We still have a war. So
which is why he has to go back. It's why he can't come back to Earth and settle down and say, I'm going to do this here.
Because there's more.
It's Maggie, if you want to be with me, we have to do it up there because this isn't over. And there's pros and cons to the fact there hasn't been a second movie or this, that, and the other, because we know there's plenty of material for it, but it also has not been screwed up not to point fingers at any properties that have been taken well beyond their original mythos to a bad place. But
you mean Willow?
So
Disney,
no.
I ain't even know names, but their initials are Lucasfilm.
It rhymes with Star Wars.
Yeah.
But it was also interesting that this one highlights so far the idea of the game is training. And Ender's Game would come out the very following year. And my husband was insisting earlier that Ender's Game came first, and I checked the dates because it was all mid-'80s. But Ender's Game isn't until the next year. But we saw several different properties kind of after this and around this time that really hit that idea as games and simulations and that kind of stuff as training for real combat without the guy who's doing the training knowing that that's what he was getting into, that they needed somebody who was naive of the cause to learn how to become this person, and then they would get thrust into it. So it was interesting that this was kind of a thing in media at that time.
Well, okay, just a slight correction though. Ender's Game, the short story, came out in the 70s.
That's true.
Okay,
that's
it's
true.
not
the
novel. The novel comes. The book comes out in 85, but so the short story does exist. But it's still a good point. You know that there's room for this kind of story that's opened up in this time period that people are thinking in terms of, you know, here's the video game era. This is when video games are becoming a real thing. And what if the video game was more than just something that kids are wasting their time with? And so I guess what surprises me is that we don't see more of this actually in the 90s when the video game kids grow up and are making their own media. You know, that would be to me, that would be the obvious, you know, I'm looking back on my childhood and my mom told me I couldn't play video games because I was wasting my life. Well, I'll show her. And I'm going to write a story about that. So I guess that's what surprises me is that it happened during the 80s and there was all this this room for that kind of story to be told. Because I know that's why I loved the movie, was the idea that I could, you know, play a game and be taken away to be a starfighter and save the universe. I thought that was fantastic.
I mean, I think totally right. I think part of what probably kills that concept is once you get into home consoles, there's no sense of how cool a video game is in a community. It's like, how cool is it that I have it at home and you can come over and play?
Yeah, and that's a good point. That's a good point, especially since we talked about how the whole in the movie, the whole trailer park comes to watch Alex beat the high score. You know, it becomes and you look at arcades from that era, and that was really very, you know, community oriented because you were doing it surrounded by your friends instead of at home.
Let's talk about how much more amazing the graphics for this last Starfighter video game he played were compared to every other video game that existed at that time.
I know, they're incredible. Yeah.
I was just like, there's not a video console game in an arcade in the world that had graphics this good at this point in history.
No. Star Wars was nothing but lines.
Yes.
Yeah. we didn't even get Ernest Cline's Armada until 2015.
That's true.
Yeah.
That's true.
Which is very much this same kind of vibe where the video game superstar goes and saves the world from aliens.
So overall, like, you know, boy rises to the occasion and saves the world. So what do you think of the essential is almost a hero's journey in Micro?
Oh, it's very much a hero's journey. It had all the elements.
It did, but it was so compressed because so much of the world of the movie was the world building and getting to know him in his trailer park, and that he wanted more. And it spoke to everybody who wanted to leave suburban hell and just see the world. And so it was they spent a lot of time on the world building for Alex and Maggie and his little brother Andy, I think his name was
Lewis.
Lewis.
Yeah, when Henry Cavill does the remake, they won't have all that.
But no, you leave the god of the nerds alone.
No, I will not. He needs to leave Highlander alone, and I'm standing on that.
Oh my!
We can talk about that in another nerdcast that we can do, but right now we got time limits on Last Starfighter. So, but overall, I like the plot. I thought it was well executed. I don't think they wasted any time. I don't feel like there were any scenes that were just filler.
No,
what about
it's
everyone else?
very well.
I thought the plot and the pacing was on point.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
I think. Go ahead.
No, just.
I was just thinking that the Fifth Element is really, I mean, to speak to a similar kind of story, is really a fantasy story wrapped up in science fiction trappings. And there's an element of that in The Last Starfighter where it is kind of the fantasy story because you've got Zor, you've got him wanting to be the emperor, you've got all this, he's the son that betrayed his father. And so there's those elements, but it doesn't feel the same. It still feels like a science fiction story. And I like that. I like that it's still kind of forward looking with these other elements. I think that makes it unique. Really.
One of the things I liked about that when they showed that sun with the betrayal, if you've got the tech to like make a silhouette of your, whatever why is it just his floating head? They could have done his whole body if they could do the head. Like the fact that they chose
budget restraints.
Right. But it would just added that level of weirdness though. So whether it was intentional or not, it created that otherworldly, like we're not in Kansas anymore vibe going on.
Yeah.
I'm just waiting
as I tell Stabby and the kid, maybe it furthers the plot.
I'm waiting for the how it should have ended animation for this movie, where the Kodan Armada just uses a meteor shotgun and just wipes Alex out. I'm just saying.
No, because he had the Death Blossom.
Yes, the Death Blossom.
Awesome. Can't beat the Death Blossom.
But that was very Wizard of Oz, the giant floating head thing. It looked very, very much with their heads being bigger and all that kind of stuff. It looked very much like the Wizard of Oz.
No, I just told you not to do that.
I really like the way they did the "Don't touch the red button" because it was that red and white striped screen for the like. Don't touch that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, we don't want to accidentally set that off.
Mm-hmm.
I thought that was kind of cool. So, what did you guys? What did you guys think of the cinematography of the way they shot the film from a production point of view?
I think it's a sharp looking movie. I mean,
it ages well.
It ages well, but you also think about, like, I was going to say this earlier, but you know what you can do with this CGI at the time. So you make your ship basic. You make Centauri's car basic so that when you do have to transition it into this car we had to build to a CGI thing, it's not jarringly different. And I think that was a wise decision on their part, but you also have to like make sure that when the CGI is a thing, it's not looks so much different than the rest of the movie. Mm-hmm. So
but to that point though, the car that you're talking about was made very basic, was very much in line with even before the CGI was a thing, with everything we thought future cars were in the early 80s. I had Matchbox cars that were supposed to be future cars that looked exactly like that. With no ties to this property and no factoring in CGI. I think some of that.
The Hot Wheels model, the large charge, I think most closely resembled this vehicle.
Yes.
It was like
I had that one.
Yeah.
It was functional.
It came out like a silver version of it.
Yeah.
It was pretty cool.
But I think cinematography wise, I mean, look, they made an RV park look interesting. Mm-hmm. That's not easy. RV parks are boring and gross. No offense.
Having lived in one, I can agree with that 100%. That was the nicest trailer.
And speaking of the scene where he explains, like the Griggs is telling him they live in caves underground. He's like, we live in caves above ground, but it's a mobile cave, but we don't go anywhere. Like that was just so classic.
But,
get around.
Yeah, I think they did a good job with the blending of the two, with making it look like this kind of Americana, super suburban environment. And then when we do transition to space, it feels different, but it's not so jarringly different. I feel like I'm in a different film. I know I'm in a different place, but I'm not in a different film. And that's a craft that so few people have, especially you think back then of like all of that was probably sets besides that RV park.
Yeah.
So I think it looks good.
Is the term.
Yeah.
I enjoyed it all. Anybody else want to weigh in on the cinematography before we move on?
No, it was shot really well. Cinematographer did a really good job, like Matthew was talking about. Like it didn't feel like when we transitioned from Earth out into like Rylos and outer space, it didn't feel like a different film. It felt like a continuation of. We just added some other elements. It was beautifully shot. The CGI for the time, pretty damn good. I still enjoy this movie. It holds up well. And it was directed by Nick Castle, who was also The Shape, aka Michael Myers.
And so, for you guys that are interested, you can buy this, and I'll link to it on Amazon. You can buy the Blu-ray for your home collection.
Cool.
You can pay to rent it on streaming. For why I don't like owning things digitally. I want a physical copy. I'm old. What can I say?
Because you don't own it. Why?
You can also watch it. It's old enough that the rights are in the public domain. So the Internet Archive, which archives public domain stuff, has a copy. You get extra commercials, but it's free. If you're on a budget, you can still watch it. Is it on YouTube as well?
Yeah, it's on YouTube.
Okay, there you go. I watched it on Internet Archives. You could watch it on YouTube. I just was too lazy to dig out my DVD version of it because I own it. But yeah, so it's out there for you to view. Overall, and then I'll give all of you a chance to do your overall thoughts. I really liked that when he transitioned to space with the alien cultures, it felt otherworldly from the way they were talking to the body language, with like Griggs doing the Roman salute, but not quite a Roman salute because Nazism was fresh in everyone's mind. And then the bracer on the wrist that he had. I just think that they created that otherworldly culture that didn't feel fake. It just felt lived in, and I really appreciated that.
And Griggs Family Pictures. Let's not forget that. We have that now. We have frames. You can zap through all these pictures. But back then, that was like, oh, that'd be really cool to have.
Yeah, that's awesome.
We have that.
And the alien wife looked exactly like him, but with female clothes. So it was like, ooh, that's love right there, because that does not look attractive. And
I
then
thought
all
it
of
was
his
spin off of Enemy Mine with Griggs.
Yeah.
It was also all the kids. He's like, what's he said, like 6 or 8 kids or something crazy?
Like
there was
it was
like
a lot of
it was
them.
like
hit a lot.
It was a crazy number.
Which means a pilot probably makes a pretty good amount of money in that in the
economy.
He was
the money that looks
hey,
like
well,
little 20s.
Well,
maybe his wife's got a good job.
Well, he was also a pilot and a
I
designer.
don't know, man. She's got like 80 kids to raise. I don't think she has time.
They have a crush.
Maybe they're like space turtles. They just hatch.
Yeah,
and go.
they just hatch and go their way. I don't know.
Jana, what did you think overall of this film?
I think that I still like it as much today as I did the first couple of times that I saw it, and that's a pretty good thing, because there's some stuff that just doesn't age well, that you watch it, but you kind of cringe. And this was just fun. It was good. I'm sitting here and going, would my daughter watch it? Maybe not, because she's very much into, she wants girls to be the main characters, and I can't blame her there. But I do think she would still love the adventure of the whole thing. So I really enjoyed it. It was fun to have a good reason to go back and watch it again.
I'm saying there might have been more girl characters. We can't assume the gender of those weird tentacle aliens.
Okay, good point.
Yeah, I'm not explaining.
Maggie doesn't become one later on.
Yeah, she could become a pilot. All right, Michael, what do you think overall? What are your closing thoughts on the
overall? Overall, it holds up well. I made my kids watch it again, and
that's good parenting.
Yeah, a few years ago. It's like we got to do that show. Remember, we got to keep that in mind. That show about all the essential IPs that we need to get in our kids in front of.
You must pass your children.
Yes,
on your
exactly.
That will be being recorded in March.
Yeah, this is one of those films, and they thoroughly enjoyed it. It held up well for them, and they were all mostly teenagers at the time that we exposed them to it. And my wife didn't appreciate I'm going to tell mom about your magazines. She didn't like that part, but we just kind of glossed over that. Well, what is he talking about? What's that? Dad? Don't worry about it. It's not important. But it also, again, I have to go back to my boy Robert Preston. This was his last theatrical role before he died, and to see him go out on,
Who did he play?
He played Centauri.
That was Centauri. Okay.
Yeah, that was Centauri, and it was so so many echoes of Harold Hill and Music Man in this role, and for him to go out that way, to me, was just like full circle icing on the cake. It was just perfect. So yeah, I have a real soft spot for this movie.
All right, what about you, Matt? You got any closing thoughts?
I have a couple closing thoughts. I have a stupid story. Do you want me to tell that later or now?
Go for it, because next we're just going to give everyone socials and wrap it up. So,
all right, stupid story time. All right, so I say this lightly. I've done acting in uber low budget films, and there was this thing we were shooting the other day, and I was in a big mask, and it was supposed to be a reveal of my character showing who I am. And I'm on set, and we're practicing, and I take that mask off, and I look at my wife who's playing my love interest, and I go, "Hey, Mags," and everybody on set just sits there deadpan, and then one of the dudes who was waiting goes, "Last Starfighter, that's awesome!" And he and I just embraced and had a great time for the rest of the day. Nobody else got the joke but that dude. So when I was watching it earlier, I sent him a picture. I'm like, "Bro, I love you for being the guy on set who knew exactly what I was doing." So
if you could just play the soundtrack of when that scene happens, that would have been awesome. Still a fun story, though.
I like this movie. I've showed it. My son hasn't watched. I think he's watched pieces of it, but I did show it to my older kids a couple years back. They had a lot of fun with it. This is one of those movies where, especially when COVID was happening, we had no idea what was going to happen with the film industry. It was like, spend $2 million, update the CGI, and put it back in the theater. Like, just say this is a what's that called?
Flashback.
So the movie takes place at a different time. Good night.
Alternate reality or alternate?
No. A period piece. It's a period film from the 80s. Okay. You just say at the beginning in 1984.
Okay. First of all, no. 80s is not a period piece. You're going to hurt yourself, man. Period pieces take place in like the early 1900s.
To our kids, they are.
1700s.
To our kids,
they are.
Gosh.
But I'm saying, you just put 1984, play the movie, update the CGI just enough because it's dated. It looks great, but it's still kind of dated.
You're out of pocket, but you're right.
Theater.
Next thing you're going to do is tell me Van Halen is classic rock. Get out of here with that noise.
They played in the theater.
Well, I hate to break it to you.
Yeah, but I think this movie holds up well enough. You could do something as simple as that, put it back out there, and you would find it entirely.
A remastered version would be insane.
Yes, correct.
Yeah.
And I'm gonna blow your mind, Michael. I was taking my kiddo to the doctor the other day, and they had My Michelle as elevator music. Guns N' Roses isn't that old. But it's just
Stop it! You are a bad man.
But for your overall thoughts, Melissa, as we start the wrap up process.
Well, we watched this recently, and I know I had seen it many, many times, but watching it again was surreal because I was remembering like scenes. I was remembering shots that they took. I was remembering the lines before they said them, and I thought I have never realized how much of an impact this movie made on me. But the thing that I was noticing, and my husband brought this up too, but the last shot of the movie where the Gunstar is taking off and you see the neon sign of the trailer park, and it lights up, Starlight, Starbright. And we were thinking, what would have been really interesting is if Alex had been working on that sign and never got the star to light up. And as the Gunstar is taking off, that's the first time the star lights up. And I'm thinking, that would have been a really good shot. I would have liked that. So, I don't, not like I'm complaining because I really love the movie, but just overall, I think I agree with Matthew. This could be updated and it would hold its own. It really would, because the story is that timeless.
I agree. My favorite scene we didn't talk about, but when he's out with Maggie, they don't show this part on screen, and she kisses his ear or whatever, and he calls her deviant relation practices, which is why she later slaps the real Alex. he has issues with his ear because of she stuck her tongue in the ear. So he takes his head off to fix it. And you got the head just sitting there. And I'm trying to figure out how they did that scene with this technology of the time, right? And then the little brother wakes up and he sees his brother with his head sitting on the table. Like, can you just imagine being that little boy waking up and your brother's got no head and his head's just sitting on the table? And when you say anything, you're having a dream, go back to bed. Like, that was just perfect. That was with the graphics, how it held up. I watched that and I'm like, wait, how did they do that?
It looked pretty good.
With the older movies, a lot of times you can kind of see, because when you take it from the little screen and the technology of the time and you put it in HD, you can kind of sometimes see the string holding the props or whatever. Like I didn't get any of that with this.
No.
So,
there's one scene at the end, and it happens, but it's also in Star Wars. If you're watching the Blu-ray, the matte paintings start sticking out in Blu-rays. And that's the unfortunate thing, because matte painting is such a beautiful lost art. But there's that very end where the Gunstar's parked and they're walking out on the thing. You can tell it's a matte painting. It still looks beautiful. It doesn't matter. But that's the only shot I can really remember going like, yeah,
so,
I missed that.
I agree with what you're saying, but when I saw that scene, all I could think of is, man, they're doing a really good job of capturing the scale about how big this Gunstar really is. Because like the trip where it's just like, okay, wait for it. Nope, still going down the elevator. Wait for it. And he finally hits the ground. Like that scene, that was just so perfect.
Mm-hmm.
That I didn't even notice the matte painting, and I know it was there. Because I'm just watching the scale of how gigantic this interstellar space fighter really is.
Yeah.
So Nicholas, I'm calling you your full name because you made me mad.
Oh crap! I didn't know we were speaking together. That's crazy.
Anyway, Nick, overall thoughts. I saved the best for last, or something.
Oh my god, this is probably one of my favorite movies from that point in the '80s, because we had just wrapped up Star Wars trilogy, Return of the Jedi. All of us Star Wars fans were like looking for something new, something fresh that was akin to that spirit. The last Starfighter definitely delivered, especially as a kid who, you get introduced. I had an Atari. Like, you're telling me there's a video game I can play and I get to be a Starfighter? That's awesome. Where do I sign up? It was just a really good movie, and it really draws you in. The way they explain the mythos and the lore and everything that's going on with it, especially when you get out into outer space. And it's just a fun movie. It's akin to like the movies that I really enjoyed from that era, like The Explorers. We mentioned that. That's another favorite of mine. I made the boy watch it not too long ago. He's like, "You watched this?" I'm like, "Yeah," and it was awesome. Because it had River Phoenix in it. And so there was it was a really good time in cinema. We got some really awesome movies, and I hope they make a sequel to this, because they could do that, because we don't know if Alex ever came back.
Well, you don't even have to worry about it. If for whatever guests or whatever actors are still alive, just push the plot forward. Now he's suddenly rebuilt the Star Legion. He's the commander, and it doesn't matter that he's old, because the character is older. Like, you could just push it.
Trying to talk his daughter.
You could make it a generational film.
Yeah,
a generational film.
The brother is finally old enough, because if he was, well, no, he'd still be a little bit.
No. He's trying to keep his daughter from being a starfighter because his brother got killed doing it.
There you go.
Doing
it? But yeah, I really dig this one. It is one of my favorites. I've exposed the kids to it. He fell asleep, but I'm going to make him watch it till he stays awake the whole damn time. Because anything less than that's just bad parenting.
Let's give him some coffee brand coffee and tell him to enjoy.
There you go. I will. Coffee brand hot chocolate. He's a little bit young for coffee.
Okay.
There we
fair
go.
enough. And the hot chocolate's really good.
It really is, especially the marshmallow. Ooh, there's just perfect kind of marshmallow goodness in there. Just don't think about the calories. They don't count with hot chocolate. That's just the rule.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
So yeah, this is the film. We will add some of the movies that we talked about in this episode to our future retro reviews, and I refuse to think of some of them as retro because they're just not that old. Another thing we have done for you, dear listener, and we're going to start putting it in the show notes going forward. I've got to get with Janet to figure out how to make those links if I can. If not, we will add them to the link tree, and you can just go there. But we have, because not all of our guests have to be authors or creators. If you're a fan of nerdy things, you're welcome on. So Jana has an open, she has made a Google Doc where you can see what we've got open. And if you've got a panel like, hey, I'd really love to do a review of this movie, you hit us up. We can make that happen. You can come on with us. If you want to fill in for some of the ones that are open, that's available too. There's a separate sheet where you can suggest topics in movies. Is another Google Doc. And then you just did a third one if they want to come on and talk about a certain property, where it's like you want to mention like
interviewing.
Interviewing.
It's just if you want to interview with Blasters and Blades, and again, you can be a creator of any sort or a raving fan. We just want to talk nerdy with you.
And then if you've got authors that you say, hey, I really love their stuff, and you want to send them those links, hey, like, you should apply to go on the show. Like, we're not picky. We love, people we haven't found yet with books we haven't discovered. So those will start getting out there. By the time this episode airs at the end of February, I should be able to have figured out how to add those links to the link tree at a minimum. So you guys can check all of that out, because we are looking to expand our guests, our topics, all of the things. And then because I love short fiction, we have been pairing with some publishers of anthologies. We've been doing short interviews for short stories. Right now, I have just done a bunch of the ones from the Deadly Flames, which I published, but we're going to look for other anthologies that I didn't publish as well, just because, like I said, short stories are awesome. So there's going to be more extra bonus episodes for you. So who knows? We might break 1,000 this season just because I'm a glutton for punishment.
I got to tell you, JR.
All right.
Tales of the E4 Mafia Volume 2 and Tales of the Butter Bars are in the works.
I actually have my story submitted for the Tales of the Butter Bar by Henchman Press.
Oh, sweet. Oh, awesome. Cool.
It is in my world, the Ghost Ship world. It's the Galactic Legion universe that I co-write with David Hensley. Yeah, cool. So he's doing our final editing pass before submission. Well, it will have been submitted by the time this episode airs. So with that, we're going to let all of our guests tell us what they are working on. And if you are smart, you can do future you, what you might be working on at the end of February, and then how we can find you. So we're going to start with you, Melissa. What is future Melissa working on, and then how can we find you?
Well, future Melissa had better be done with the War Master series by the end of February, and moving on to maybe a new lit RPG series that's a sequel to War Master. And you can find me on the web as melissamcShaneWrites.com is my website. That also leads to my storefront. And I'm on Facebook. And if you follow me on Goodreads, you can see what I'm reading. I do that for fun. I'm not like a author shilling for stuff. It's just me and my friends. And we read stuff and we talk about it.
Out freaking standing. Next, we have Jana S. Brown, because we're gentlemen here, and sometimes we let the ladies go first.
We appreciate it. Let's see. By the end of February, I am still working on the reboot project with you. That one is our lit RPG. What happens when the Marines not fall through. They charge through a dimensional door, because why not? And find themselves in a fantasy world where everything is trying to kill them. And they have to kill them right back, because that's what you do when you are a bunch of army guys. So,
actually, I'm sorry, back that up. Marines? Army guys?
I know, I said it totally wrong. I apologize. I apologize. It's late here.
Fair. We have gone long. It is 11 p.m. for us. We are old. We want to take our whatever and insert old people jokes, and we'll move on.
Yes, all old people jokes. So we're taking army guys, and we're going through. So that's going on. I will probably be editing The Last War Master about that time, which will be nice. And oh goodness. And there's some urban fantasy that hopefully will be out by that point. But I have conferences, so if you're going to Superstars in February, then I may have seen you there, or Life, the Universe, and Everything, I may have seen you there too. And you can find me at opalkingdompress.com. That's where me and my many personalities hang out. I also do some open calls for anthologies there. And you can find me on all of the other places, either under Jenna Ray or Jana S. Brown Writes, or other names that are not appropriate here, because, they're smoochies.
And for the record, we didn't make this guy the main character in the reboot series an infantryman because I tend to overdo that because I was in the infantry, right? Which you know. So instead, we made him a cav officer, which basically means he's a civilian.
Ew. Brother, ew.
And so Jana was smart enough to add all the jokes because he doesn't know how to ride a horse and he's in a fantasy world. Wait, you were cav? You can't ride a horse. You're barely staying on the saddle. So we've got some fun one-liners because of that.
Yep. Give me your spurs back. Give me your spurs back.
That's the whole thing. There's a whole lot of jokes about, you
don't deserve that.
He's so afraid of the horses.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. So all right, Matt. Other than you've talked about your podcast, I will link to that in the show notes. Is there anything else that you're working on?
Nah.
I mean, drawing a few comics. You know.
Yeah.
Wow, really, bro?
Yeah. I mean, yeah. I'm always working on something. Even though I try to quit, but they bring me back in. So
no,
I've got
bring yourself back in. You just can't stay away.
It's a mixture. It's a mix. But yeah, I've done a lot of stuff for Apogee Comics. Some of the stuff is on. It's in development. It's in production.
It's in production.
It's in production, and then some other company, Grunt Comics. Like ever so often, something of mine comes out from over there. And besides that, the We Are the Batman podcast, and you could catch me on across all social media because my co-host made me do it. It is now the Hasso Man. So just find me on Twitter, Instagram, blah blah. Maggity. Do not find me on Facebook. You just see a bunch of pictures of my family and memes. So
memes are important. So if you're watching, or excuse me, if you're listening to this only, if you're one of those ones listening to like Spotify or whatever as you're driving, you are missing some of the most entertaining parts of this podcast, which is Matthew Jalapeno Hasso is at a standing desk. The man is too energetic to sit down, so he has been bouncing left and right the entire time, almost like a metronome, and you could have set your watch by it and been perfectly okay.
I had to look away from the screen. It was very distracting.
So
I found myself going like this once in a while.
I'm rocking back and forth.
How about next time? I'll just do this. I'll just have him there, and I'll talk.
All right. Yeah.
So Michael, what will future you be writing? Because Gladius Leagues is done and should be being published soon-ish. What is future you writing, and how can we find you?
By the time this comes out, Gladius Leagues Book 1 will be out there, released in the wild. And hey, Matt, I'll have this up next time.
Oh, hold on. Solo layout. Show us. What is that? Oh, it's an alien.
That is the smog monster.
Oh, cool.
Nice.
Yeah, one of my favorite kaijus.
I like it.
So I'm still working on a Space Navy series with Peter Stanley. And we're hopefully going to get a couple of those finished and in the can, so we can book. We have 3 books planned. There's multiple spinoffs that could go in a bunch of different directions, so we're working on that. And I'm also working on developing a story called the Gearhead Guerrillas, which is about a group of space defense artillery guys, and they're all based on real people from my unit in Germany. Who get stranded behind enemy lines and use their expertise in fixing stuff to do the exact opposite, becoming the greatest saboteurs in military history. So it's going to be a lot of fun to write because the guys that I served with were a lot of fun to serve with.
That's
okay, now tell me about the Romantasy, because I want you to write that novel.
Oh, that is that's a 3-book series that I'm still in the planning stages of. I do have, in addition to the short stories you've read, there's a 3rd short story in that universe that has been submitted to an anthology that is to benefit the Gary Sinise Foundation.
Yeah, I've seen that.
Oh wait, no, you did read that one. You were my editor.
I read that one too.
I forgot.
I've given you feedback on all of these, which is why folks need to know that you do write the bold and the fighty, but you also write some really pretty good romance.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that. I had a lot of help.
That's what we live for.
And I have just been informed by people that speak with the voice of God that if Nick doesn't get out of here soon, he will be cut again. So we are wrapping this up. I really do promise. She sent me pictures of the food that's waiting for him just to make me tortured too. Nobody gets out of this one scot-free. So, Michael, we will definitely have to have you back when the Gladius League comes out to do an interview just about that. That does sound interesting. And we appreciate everyone for sticking with us. I know this episode went long. We get kind of passionate about these nerdy things. I make no apologies for that. We definitely have a lot of future topics, but with that said, I would like to remind you that it matters in film as much as it matters in books, but please be kind and speak your mind on the reviewing platforms. Your reviews help the right consumer find the right products, be it books, anime, graphic novels, you name the thing, reviews still matter. And the consumers, find their new passion because you wrote that awesome review, are just waiting to join your nerdy fandom. So do the thing, people. It really does matter. You can find us on our link tree at linktr.ee, linktree/Blasters and Blades Podcast. Again, linktree/Blasters and Blades Podcast, where we link to all the things, the BitChutes, the Rumbles, the TikToks, the YouTubes. TikTok is the maybe. The Twitters, our website. We've got our Blasters and Blades Facebook group and Facebook page. We have our email, blastersandbladespodcast@gmail.com. Again, blastersandbladespodcast@gmail.com for professional purposes only, people. Save the shenanigans from Madam Stabby Stab over there on the Instagram, the Twitter, and the email. Assuming she keeps herself out of jail and hasn't stabbed Nick to death because this episode went long, she will be around for future episodes. It's up in the air, and we might have to say a Hail Mary for Nick's soul. You could support the show over at buymeacoffee.com/author J.R. Handley. Again, buymeacoffee.com/author J.R. Handley. Be sure to put in the comment section that it's for the podcast. I promise we will, you put it in the podcast. I will keep my co-host Nick Garber stocked with the Band-Aids. He might need them for all the stabbing. We will also keep him caffeinated enough that he doesn't care that he's been stabbed a dozen times. And he just kept falling on the knife. I learned that in a certain movie. He just fell on the knife 13 times. Stuff happens. And with that, thank you for spending some of your precious time with us. For my injured co-host, I am J.R. Handley. This was the Blasters and Blades Podcast. We'll be back next week at the same time where we indulge our love of nerd culture, cheesy jokes, and all things that go boom. All right, Nick, I'm sorry that we got you cut. And with that, I'm going to hit the end recording button so you can live. Boom. Oh, she's coming with